We were discussing this earlier. Did you? We couldn't like find confirmation, but did you really text Kevin after in the parking lot after the finals in 2016? Is that a real story, or is there some truth to it?
No, we were on FaceTime actually when I was in the locker room, and we were just talking about the game. If you don't know anything else about Kevin, you have to know that he absolutely loved basketball. Kevin will watch 10-year-olds play basketball. Like, he absolutely loved basketball. So obviously he's watching the game. So he just called me after the game. And we're sitting there on FaceTime talking about the game. And then that was that. The whole
So
narrative.
it didn't come up that night, the conversation about him potentially joining with you guys.
Not that night, but I definitely called.
Shortly thereafter.
And I'll tell you what did happen that night. Actually, the end of the conversation was like, man, did you see that? Like, yeah, I saw it. I'm like, he like, you saw it? Like, yeah, I saw it. Me too. All right, bet. So if there was any conversation about Kevin coming to our team, that's as far as it went. Like, yeah, I saw what happened. You saw what happened? Yeah. All right, bet. Yeah. And so I guess that was kind of us like saying like, yeah, all right, we know what's going on. We know what can make this right. All right, cool. But the whole notion of like me calling Kevin in the parking lot crying is just like some fan who tweeted it and everybody took off running with it. There was no benefit in me coming out like, you're wrong, and this is actually how it happened. There was no benefit in it for me, so I just kind of let him run with the story. Hey, run on, and that became the narrative. Nor did I care. At the end of the day, shame on you if you don't want Kevin Durant on your team. I'm a winner. I like to win, so I want Kevin Durant on my team, and that's kind of that. But who I did call that night on my way home was Bob Myers. Hey, man, what do we have to do to get Kevin Durant? Because I know I took less money. When I signed my first $82 million contract, I took less than what I could have gotten so we could pay Kevin the max the following year. Like, I was already looking ahead. Like, hey, we could possibly get Kevin Durant. I'll take this. The most I could take was 85. For some reason, I just my agent asked me, what number do you feel comfortable at? I wrote 82 on the paper. He's like, all right, circle it. But if you circle it, this is what I'm going to get. So make sure if this is the number, just let me know. I circled it. He took the paper and walked out. We were in L.A. At the Mayborn, which was the Montage then. That was a whole year before. That was actually after winning the 2015 championship. But if you're not improving, you won't keep winning championships. And so I'm like, oh, we can get Kevin Durant. All right, this is what I'm taking. And so I was already ahead of it and knew exactly what I wanted. And shout out to the guy who said I cried to him in the car.
This has been talked about a lot. And so I'm just kind of recapping here. But what made sort of all these confluence of factors come together. Steph took a deal that was way below market value because of his uncertainty around his ankles. Klay took a deal that wasn't quite the max extension. You took less money. And then we had the salary bump in the summer of 16. It was like a once-in-a-generation type thing where a team that had 3 players, really good players, already on their second contract, having won a championship and lost in Game 7 of the finals, could then go out and get the best free agent available that summer, obviously, but also one of the best players ever. It's just, it's an anomaly. And of course, if you're trying to win, like, yeah, let's go get this guy. Very curious about the Hamptons 5 meeting. I'm very curious about this. Number one, the vibe, but also just in the I guess it probably was 10 days. In the 10 days leading up to free agency, in between Game 7 and the finals, and then you guys go out to East Hampton. When did you sort of get the sense that you had a legit chance to get Kevin?
I knew right away. I had known the whole time that we got a legit chance, that Kevin is not happy in OKC. And we have a legit chance of getting him. Why? Because our brand of basketball. His whole thing was like, I just want to play good basketball with good players. Like I miss playing good basketball, and I just want that. I think we played a great brand of basketball. I don't think there's any debate on that. And so that was Kevin's number one thing. Why is that? A talent like Kevin Durant, why is his goal, I just want to play good basketball? That just goes to show you what I said earlier, how much Kevin Durant just loves the game of basketball. And so I knew all along that we would have a legit shot, because I felt in my heart that we played the best brand of basketball. So going into that meeting, number one, I had to fly, thanks to Gary Schiffman, one of my close friends' dad, also a mentor. He let me use his plane. So I was at a wedding in Michigan. My college teammate, Raymond Morgan, was getting married. And it was on July 1st, the wedding. We had to meet with Kevin that day. So he let me use his plane, fly in for the meeting, fly back out for the wedding. And leading up to that, a week prior, Bob's calling me. He's like, hey, you have to, it's your job to make sure Steph Curry's on the plane with Joe and I, and Andre, and Klay, and Steve. I knew I was missing somebody. It is important that Steph is on that plane. Now, what you must know about Steph is Steph kind of moves at his own pace. He does his own thing. In the summer, you're probably not getting him. He's probably somewhere golfing after he's been with his family for 13 days straight, and then he can go get a couple hours of golfing, and then he's back with the family. Like, Steph's, the last thing he's doing until he's back in the gym working out is anything related to basketball. And so it's my job, who's at a wedding and a bachelor party right before that in Miami, to get him on the plane. So I just keep texting, like, yo, you going, right? Like, you going to be at the meeting? He like, yeah, man, I'm going. Like, because obviously Steph had to approve Kevin coming. Like, I could have wanted Kevin all I want, but if Steph ultimately didn't approve, it wasn't happening. And Kevin also wanted to hear that Steph approved. So once we knew for sure Steph would be on the plane, I'm like, all right, cool, we'll get there. And the vibe, we sat down. We drove to the house at the Hamptons. We sat down in some little room. It was our brass, Joe and Kirk, Bob, Steve, 5 or the 4. And then it's Kevin, his dad, and Rich Kleiman. And so we're all sitting there, and they get straight to the chase. All right, we don't need to sit here all day. We got a couple questions. They asked her a few questions, and then they're like, all right, let Rich talk to the brass, and we'll go outside. And all 4 of us with Kevin went outside. And he's literally sitting there talking to us like, yeah, man, this is going to be fun. Like, just sitting back chilling like, man, I'm looking forward to this, that, and other. And I'm thinking to myself like, oh, man, he's already in. Like, this is done. And then you started to see the reports happen, and I'm like, oh, shit. Like, we were the first team to meet with him. Should we have pushed our meeting back to be last? Like, what's going on? And the reality is, in hindsight, we probably should have, because then he said, I went to sleep and I was making my decision the next, like, I woke up at 3:30 that morning and went and knocked on Rich's door and told him, yeah, it's the Warriors. I'm going to the Warriors. If we had lost that simply because we were first, that would have sucked. But the vibe was great. I mean, we sat out there in some huge yard, wherever house they were at, and talked style of play, what we're going to do, how fun it was going to be. Like, that was our conversation. And then, we talked to him a little bit about how we go about things, how If a guy is hot, we feeding that guy, as you can see with 37 and a quarter or 61. Like, if you're hot, we feeding you. And he appreciated all of that. And like I said, I thought it was a done deal then. Listening to the stuff that came after, apparently it wasn't, but I thought it was done.